Couple of those. I've had a couple of those. I'm resident of Hollywood, Jill Saints for YouTube, joined by Katherine Gonzales, who does some TikTok videos with Bobby Lagose. When did you first start doing those?
It was maybe several months ago. We just started talking and kicking ideas around. And like I had said earlier with you, I mean, we really inspire each other. Bobby and I, I think we're each other's muses, and one of us will take an idea and kind of bounce it around and run with it. And we both have a great love of dark shadows, which is wonderful because I don't feel like a freak. I have somebody that I can, talk to about these ideas, and they don't look at me like, "What are you talking about?" Because he gets it. Anybody else, you can mention, a hand in a box, and they're like, "What?" But I mean, dark shadows, anything goes.
It's funny. I had somebody called me over the phone, and I was explaining the hand of Count Patofi to them over a telephone, so they couldn't visualize. But you're right. It's hard to explain sometimes what Dark Shadows is, so I just keep it
Mhm.
basic. But yeah, you do get this look like, oh, that's interesting. And then they're like, you're still not sure what you're talking about. I've had so many people tell me they're going to check it out. I'm like, I hope you do.
Well, even my fiance lives in London, and he hasn't really seen the show. He's kind of heard about it, but he hasn't seen it. And I try to explain it to him, and he just kind of goes, "That's nice, darling," because I don't think you can really visualize it yet.
Yeah.
And so I think when we're able to watch it together, he'll really kind of know what the hell I'm talking about.
It's really, really cool. How, when did you first discover you could sort of laugh like Angelique, like Laura Parker?
Well, accidentally, because I was at a Dark Shadows convention. And now this is the first time I ever really thought anything about it, because I was at a Dark Shadows convention. I was very good with a very good friend of mine. His name's Fish. Hi, Fish. And he was making me laugh. And I don't even remember what it was, but we were at this festival, and he was just telling me something, and I was just laughing. And the people around me stopped and just kind of stared at me. And I have horrible stage fright. I don't like public speaking. I don't like being in front of people. I'm a little nervous right now, to tell you the truth. But to have these people kind of just like stop and stare. And I thought I'd done something wrong. Like, here I'm just laughing. These people are staring at me. And a friend of mine kind of nudged me. She went, "It's your laugh, stupid." You sound like Angelique. And I'm like, "Oh," because I had no idea like what I'd done. I didn't know why they were laughing or staring at me. I was just laughing and having a good time. And that actually happened several times. And people would kind of give me looks. And slowly I kind of figured it out. And it's like, okay, when you laugh, people will stare. So.
It's very, very good. It's really good. We're here. We're also here to talk about Jonathan Fritz Barnabas Collins and Ben Cross's Barnabas Collins. When did you first see the original Dark Shadows, and when did you first see the revival series?
So I had an interesting situation because I became aware of Dark Shadows accidentally. I
Oh,
had graduated high school, and it was summer of 2002. I was lounging around channel surfing, and I saw this man in Victorian attire kind of brooding and laughing maniacally. And I went, "What is this?" And there were these kids, and there was a secret passage. And I can tell you exactly what it was. The episode with Abe Vigoda when he was at Braithwaite and he came to the house. That was the first episode I saw. I didn't know if it was a movie. I didn't know what it was,
right.
but I hooked because I'm like, "Who is this man? I want to know more about him. Who are these children? What's going on?" And I was just hooked from the get go. And I realized, okay, it's a TV series. Okay, there's another episode. And so I sat and I watched it, and I didn't understand a lot of what was going on, because coming into that storyline, The Haunting of Collinwood, I mean, so much has happened before. And of course, in that storyline, they do make references to things like Vicky, and I'm like, "Who is Vicky? What are they talking about, Vicky? Because the only governess I knew at that point was Maggie Evans, because she was the governess then. And they were talking about, 1795 and alluding to things about Barnabas's past. And so with me, and I know Bobby's the same way, when we're interested in something, we want to find out everything we can about whatever that subject is. So I got online. I'm like, what is this Dark Shadows? Who is Barnabas Collins? What's going on? And I found all of these resources and I joined online groups. And so I found out more about what was going on. I found out more about his backstory, but I hadn't actually seen the episodes yet. So it didn't really mean that much to me. Even when I went to my first festival, which was actually the 2004 festival in Tarrytown, I still hadn't seen the entire run. So some things I was still kind of in the dark. I remember Betsy Durkin was there, and I met Betsy Durkin, and I had no idea who she was. And I saw that she played Victoria Winters, but I didn't know Victoria Winters yet. So, I mean, for me, I was just like, oh, yeah, she's very nice, and I'll get a picture with her, but I have no idea who she is in this show. And I'm still, learning. And so for me, coming into this part of the series where Barnabas is the hero, he's out to save his family. And so that's how I first got acquainted with this character as this kind of hero character. And okay, he's going to save the family. He's going to vanquish this ghost. He's going to save this little boy, And then, of course, the wonderful journey into 1897, which I adored. And that was my first introduction to Barnabas the vampire. Yeah. Because, of course, in 1897, he's a vampire. And I went, oh, that's what they're talking about, Barnabas the vampire. And now I could see it, and it was like this whole different aspect, because he was still the same Barnabas. He was still this hero kind of character that was, trying to save his family and trying to find answers. But now he had this edge. And it's like, okay, all right, this is cool. This is really cool, And so, I mean, yeah, I watched to like the end of the series, and actually Sci-Fi did not show the end of 1841 Parallel Time. I believe they stopped several weeks early. Excuse me. Allergies. And so I bought several VHS tapes because I don't think the DVDs were out quite yet, and watched the rest of the 1841 Parallel Time so I could finish the series. And then by that time, I believe the DVDs were out and available, or at least affordable to me. So I started with, set one, and then here he is, Barnabas, being released from his coffin, and I went, oh, because, like I say, seeing him in 1897 as a vampire, and seeing him in 1967 as a vampire, even though they were similar, they were very different experiences.
Yeah.
And especially knowing what you know of the character as you've, kind of seen the show progress. And it's like, now you're at the beginning. So you're seeing him when he first comes in, you're like, but he isn't like that in the series. He's not as harsh. He's not as, I don't know how I want to put it. I mean, not necessarily evil. I don't think evil Barnabas was ever truly evil. I think he was just, I don't know. Okay, think of it this way. In 1967, when Willie Loomis released him from his coffin, he's been in that coffin a long time. And I think anybody who's in a confined space for a very long period of time has to go a little nuts. Yeah. So I think when Barnabas was released in 1967, and the whole thing with kidnapping Maggie Evans, being fixated on Josette, I think that is largely a part of being in his coffin for such a long time. You're trapped with your thoughts. You're trapped with your past. You've got things going around and around and around in your head. And now here you've got this chance to live again. Yeah. And you think, okay, I'm going to make things go how I want. And I think that's really what drives Barnabas with like his kidnapping of Maggie Evans and all that sort of thing in that storyline is that he is trying to control his destiny. It's not so much that he loves Maggie, or maybe that he doesn't even really truly think she's Josette. I think it's Barnabas trying to actually control his destiny this time around.
I think too, like something I've noticed when I've gone back and watched Dark Shadows is I don't think he's ever really going to kill her either. I mean,
No, the,
here's
if Barnabas wants to kill somebody, he will.
yeah, I mean, here's Willie Loomis, the guy who he smacked around like there's no tomorrow,
Mhm.
talking to him
Mhm.
before he goes down to kill Maggie. I'm
Mhm.
thinking, no, no, wait a second. You're listening to Willie Loomis
Mhm.
somewhat try to talk you out of this. When Willie was like opening his mouth for you, like you were like caning him here, like what?
Mhm.
And you sort of get the sense of, oh, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to kill her because Willie is sort of Barnabas's conscience in a way,
Mhm.
sort of
He
his
is.
Jiminy Cricket, if you
And
will.
it's funny because I actually have a theory. I've been thinking about this. Okay. Now, I have a theory. Now, Barnabas bit Willie, Barnabas bit Maggie. I think that when they are under his control, when he is a vampire, I think they somehow know more about him than they would just interacting with him. I think there's got to be something in that blood connection or something, because the thing with Maggie Evans, it drives me crazy. It's like, how stupid can you be, girl? You've got this man who wants to give you the world. He wants to give you jewelry. He wants to take care of you, and all you want to do is go home. And if she seriously thought that he was going to murder her, like he's, kind of blustering about, like, well, if you won't, marry me, then I'll kill you, kind of thing. I don't think she believes it, because I think she somehow knows that he doesn't truly mean it. And that's why she doesn't do what any other woman in her position would do, which would be play along, become Josette. Do what the man wants. If you really think he's going to kill you, then your survival mode should be okay, there's books in the old house on the past. I'm going to read up on the past. I'm going to find out everything about the past. I will become Josette. I will listen to him. I will not recoil at the touch of his hand.
Yeah,
That's your survival instincts. So
yeah.
for her to totally go against that and just be like, I want to go home, my Maggie Evans, let me out. There's got to be something inside her, even if she doesn't necessarily realize it, that kind of says, he's not going to kill.
I think too when Barnabas bites people, when he bit Willie, I think he saw a lot of what Willie went through. When he bites
Mhm.
his victims, he sort of sees what they've gone through and who they've
Mhm.
interacted with. It's how he knew
Mhm.
Who Maggie was. It's
Mhm.
how he knew about her. It's how he knew Elizabeth, like all the names. I don't think
Mhm.
Willie necessarily told him every little thing
No,
that
I
far,
think that's
far
got to be the
verbatim.
explanation of how he caught up so quickly with
Yeah,
what was going on with current day Collinwood. Is it had to be something in that transfusion and that action of biting Willie Loomis
yeah,
that kind of fed him the information.
yeah. What did you think of Ben Cross's Barnabas?
It was a very different Barnabas, that's
Yeah,
for sure. Um, he he was a very stoic Barnabas. Jonathan Frid, I felt, was a very vulnerable Barnabas. And Ben Cross, not so much. I think he felt just kind of very stoic, like not show, a whole lot of emotion and poker face and that sort of thing. Whereas with Jonathan Frid, you can see it on his face so much more what he's thinking, what his character is going. And there's a few exceptions with Ben Cross as Barnabas. One of which is when he has received the transfusions from Julia, and he is seeing the sun, and his skin is actually sweating.
yeah,
And so you can actually kind of feel that metaphysical change in his body, that he is feeling that heat. You're seeing that sun kind of through his eyes, not just as like the sun, something I haven't seen in 200 years, but you're feeling it inside him as well.
yeah. He's standing there, and the sheriff and Professor Woodard are standing there, and
Mhm.
Professor Woodard is basically calling him out, like
Mhm.
and he's standing there, and you're right. Ben Cross is. wet in bullets. Um, right there. The one thing I noticed with him too, you're right. He's very James Bond like. He's very swaggerish, and I like how when Dr. Julia Hoffman, when Angelique, the ghost of Angelique appears, she's like, "What? Who is that?" And he's like, "That, my dear doctor, is the witch." It's like
Mm-hmm.
he's so calm about it. He's not like yelling. He's like, "Yeah, I knew this was gonna happen. I knew." And it's you sort of like that because it's like he's expecting things to go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big difference from the Jonathan Fred Barnabas, whereas his Barnabas had a plan,
Yeah,
and he did his best to fulfill that plan to make sure things went to plan, and sometimes things didn't go to plan, and he was caught very unawares. And I think whereas with the Ben Cross Barnabas is just like, well, we'll roll with the punches, we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure this will happen, but and it's almost a kind of a cavalier attitude
yeah,
toward things. It's like, well, if it happens, it happens, and we will, figure it out.
yeah. You're right. He's very much like rolling with the punches on a lot of it because he's not. Again, with when Jonathan Fritz Barnabas is to the realization when he sees Angelique's portrait, he's not happy about it.
No.
He's worried.
Mm-hmm.
With when when Ben Cross's Barnabas sees Josette's ghost, it's like, yeah, I knew this was coming. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because he knows, like, hey, this woman's a witch. I'm not going to be rid of her that easy, even if I kill her. And I really, I think both men do a good job. It could
Mm-hmm.
not. I know Ben Cross wasn't playing Jonathan's Barnabas; he was playing a rebooted version. But
Mm-hmm.
stepping into those shoes of being the second man to play Barnabas Collins could not have been an easy thing, and it makes you appreciate what he was able to do
Mm-hmm.
for just one season.
Right. And that's another thing with so few episodes to compare to, because
Yeah,
Barnabas went on a big journey. He really did. He kind of just ran through every time period, every emotion. And that's the thing with Barnabas too, is you can relate to him
yeah,
in pretty much every time period, in every situation. There's something so relatable to Jonathan Frid's Barnabas that it humanizes him. You can always find something that you can relate to. With Ben Cross, not so much, and it's partially due because it was a rather short run of the series, but I think also because he not only doesn't experience as much, but because he keeps so much inside,
mm,
as opposed to Jonathan Frid's Barnabas. And I mean, there are a few shows of emotion that are just beautiful moments with Ben Cross, like when Vicky's running towards Widow's Hill, and he has that flashback of Josette, and that's a very just vulnerable, pure moment.
mm,
You know that it hits him, and for an instant he thinks he's lost her. He thinks, she's gone over the cliff too. And that he has genuine feelings for her. It's not just him reliving Josette's death. He has genuine feelings for Victoria Winters. And so it hits him so hard when you see that pure anguish. And then the relief to know that she's here, she's fine, she's okay.
I think too with Ben Cross's Barnabas, there's the things he did well with because again he only gets one season.
Mm-hmm.
He's selling a lot with his facial reaction too. Like by the end of the series, we all know that Victoria Winters knows the secret. That's another part of the big difference too. Victoria Winters knows the secret of Barnabas Collins. He's a vampire, and Ben Cross's Barnabas Collins knows that she knows, and the look on his face is like, okay, so like there's going to be some issues there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of a shame they didn't get a season two to see how they were going to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also really love how Jim Fay's Willie Loomis is really interesting. Him and Ben Cross had great chemistry.
They do. And the thing is, with the two series, not only are they so different in terms of, like the shortened time periods and picking and choosing
Yeah.
what to put in the 91 from the original series, but also a lot of the characters' motivations are different. you know in the 91 revival, I don't think Angelique truly loves Barnabas. I feel that at all like I do with the original series. And so I think that her motivations and what she does and how he reacts to that is different, because that in itself is so different from the original series.
She gives me more of a serial killer vibe. Like
Hmm.
very she's very psychotic.
She is.
Rosetta Anthony plays a very good psychotic witch.
Hmm.
And that's the thing too. Like with reboots, they're supposed to be different than the original of what they're going off of, and I
Hmm.
think that's something that the revival did really really well. Lizette Anthony's Angelique, she's she does everything to try to seduce Barnabas, to
Hmm.
have him as hers. But once she realizes that's not going to happen, she's ready to kill him. Like there's no tomorrow. It's like, okay, if I can't have you, no one's ever going to have you. Meaning I'll kill you. And that sort of turn was like, holy
Hmm.
Jesus, this woman's crazy.
And in a way, it's a bit of a reversal from Barnabas's position in
Yeah,
the original series, where he covets Josette so much, and the idea of Josette. And not so much that he is completely in love with Josette, especially when like he kidnaps Maggie, or when he's fixated on Victoria Winters. It's that idea of Josette that kind of like keeps him going. And in the revival, it's kind of almost the opposite, where you have Angelique after Barnabas, and that's what drives her. And it's so very different.
yeah. With the original, you get the sense, you get every sense that there was a relationship between Angelique and Barnabas in
Hmm.
Martinique, a love relationship that
Definitely.
they had made love.
Definitely.
And with Josette, you get the sense that Barnabas is in love with Josette, but you also get the sense that Angelique never
Mhm.
forgot about Barnabas ever. And why should she?
And I think with Barnabas and Josette in the original series too, I think that they did love each other, but I don't think they were necessarily in love with each other. I think that in some way, Angelique was the best partner for Barnabas, that I think they had the most real connection. Um, I think that even though he did truly love Josette and want to marry Josette, I think it may partly be from um, their kind of surroundings on both their parts. That, it was a good match. It was kind of expected of them. They just kind of fell into it, but not necessarily fell in love. And I do kind of get that in some of the 1795 scenes, where sometimes they feel like, yeah, they are in love and this is, beautiful. But then other times it just kind of falls flat. Like, you can love someone and not be in love with them. Been there, done that. And, I kind of get that feeling.
There's the thing with Barnabas and Josette's like marriage. There's things to keep in mind with the original series. Their marriage is, though they're getting married for their own reasons.
Hmm.
Joshua is he sees this as a business transaction. And here's how sly Lewis Edmonds Joshua Collins is. No, he looks at Barnabas and Josette like, this is gonna happen. This is in the bag. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna suggest to my brother
Hmm.
Jeremiah that he marry his cousin Millicent, so I have another marriage in the bag. And
Hmm.
when that happens, I love Jeremiah's reaction in 1795. He's like, no, 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 I'm not, no. It's so
You,
good.
you bring up an interesting point about Joshua and his idea of the marriage. And that kind of goes with, as I was saying a moment ago, because Barnabas loved his father. I think he idolized his father. And
Yeah,
so I think he really would have taken that into consideration when he went to Martinique in the first place, when this whole marriage is coming together. you
yeah.
know he didn't necessarily think, this is my idea or this is his idea. It's in the back of his head. Whereas with the revival series, I feel that it does feel very much like a more of a love match between Barnabas and Josette. I mean, that's how it feels to me, the way it comes across.
Well, I think with like the original series, like the things I picked up on between Laura Parker and Jonathan Frid, my wife pointed this out to me. So I give her a lot of credit for this. She was watching the series one day with me. And when Angelique and Barnabas were together and they were like hugging each other, and you could tell that Angelique wanted to kiss Barnabas again. She was meaning the characters. So I want to stress that when people go back and listen to this, she was meaning the characters. She goes, well, you could tell they fucked, and I'm like, what? So, and I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying. So in Martinique, they made love, they had sex, so they had a relationship, and I got what she was saying right away. Here's Angelique. She never let go of that relationship at all because why should she? She's in love. She loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this man who's marrying Josette. And, for Joshua, everything's a business transaction. He doesn't see it as anything else, for a marriage as anything else. I mean, his own marriage was arranged, even though you do find out after, like, his wife dies, his daughter dies, that he did love his family. It's like, I love Louis Edmonds' Joshua Collins because it's a great performance. He does a great job playing a cold-blooded person.
Mm-hmm.
um, what are your thoughts on the Joshuas between Louis Edmonds, Joshua Collins, and the Joshua Collins and the revival?
Well, I certainly prefer uh, Big Lou as
Me
and
too.
gotta be. I don't know because I think the revival Joshua was, and especially the way it was written very much to be a man of that time and
Yeah,
very strict and very rigid. In the original series, I mean, Joshua does come around. He does get his head out of his you know what. He does
yeah,
realize, there are things out there that you don't understand, and it's okay to be open minded. And he does kind of realize that eventually.
What did you think of in the revival series Jim Fay's Willie Loomis being related to Mrs. Johnson? That was so different.
I thought that was very good from a storytelling point because it gives Willie a place at
Yeah,
Collinwood simply as a servant, but that he is related to this other character. So he knows these characters, they know him. And so that when Barnabas comes in and essentially picks up Willie Loomis's and changes him into a different man, they all take notice because this isn't the Willie that they've known. This
yeah,
is the fixture of Collinwood that he has been in an unfavorable light. Now he's this new man where it's like he's not so bad. He actually does care about people. He genuinely cares about Victoria Winters. He's not just sitting around drinking and causing trouble.
yeah.
So I really like that.
I like how because the biggest difference between like the original series and the revival in the original series you have Willie Loomis who's coming in. He's coming in with Jason McGuire. Without Jason McGuire, Brennan, and Willie Loomis, we don't get the release of Barnabas Collins in every way. We
Mhm.
have this thief. I mean, I've talked about this with my buddy Patrick Prey. He asked me who's the character that grows up the most, and I said easily Willie Loomis. As much as I'd love to give it to Barnabas,
No,
it's Willie. With Jim Fay's Willie Loomis, here's a guy who has trouble speaking. He stutters, but he undergoes a dramatic change with Barnabas where he's talking normally, he's talking proper, he's not stuttering, he's very mild mannered. I love how he still cares about his aunt. I think that's another thing too. He's with the original, the OG Willie, as we'll say, he
Mhm.
does. You're right. He's Jason. Him and him were friends, but he's also a thief who's out to get his own. And
Mhm.
that's sort of what causes his downfall, too, because he begins looking for the jewels of Naomi Collins, where she was given jewels by a pirate. And
Mhm.
I love how he attaches the rope to the coffin and to the lion's mouth. And he's trying to pull the coffin lid up, and here it opens the door accidentally, and there he sees the chain coffin. With the revival series, he opens up the secret passage. There's no Jason McGuire. There's no
And he's done his own research in the
yeah. He's the yeah. Well, they both that's the similarity in the original series. He does research. He looks up the Collins family history, and in the revival, he does research too. That's the one similarity I like, other than the names.
Mhm.
That's the one similarity I like that they've kept.
Mhm.
Now, I'll get in the house here in a second, but and I love how it's done differently with the way they do, because with the original, we see a hand coming for the throat. With
Mhm.
the revival, we do get the hand with the throat, but we also see William Loomis laying on the ground,
Mhm.
unconscious,
Mhm.
and we see these feet walking along the floor. I thought that was so chilling, the way both did it so differently. What did you think?
Because I prefer the original. Because the thing with the revival that bugged me is, okay, if Barnabas has the time to get Willie mess up and to bite him, and then he goes into the house, but he's got this brand new outfit on, and he's not phased at all by the electricity and Collinwood or anything. And it's like, I mean, I can understand gaining so much knowledge from Willie, from him telling you, or even from drinking his blood, but where did he get the clothes? That bothers me.
I,
Did he
here's
have
what here's,
time?
here's something you're right. They don't necessarily say it in revival, but I think where he got the clothes is when he went into town and killed that one woman. I think that's where he got the clothes, because I think he goes there first before he goes to the house. If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. Don't hold me to that. But um, I do like the fact that I think in short, I think he steals the clothes. So I could be wrong. But with the original, I do like the fact that you're right. He has Willie get him clothes,
Mhm.
um, because Willie's now his servant. With the revival, Willie's unconscious. Willie ain't getting nothing. He
Yeah.
has to get it himself until Willie comes to. Now, could he have had Willie get up off the floor and we just didn't see that part? Sure, directors and producers do stuff like that all the time.
Mhm.
Um, so there's that. What did you think of House of Dark Shadows, the evil Barnabas, as we say?
I honestly have never really cared much for House of Dark Shadows. I think it's beautifully shot,
It is.
and I think it's an interesting story, but it's so different from the series and the characters that we know, and not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah. It's I've told this to a friend of mine. I'm going to give a shout out to him, John Philip Betancourt. He wrote a series called The Return of Dark Shadows. It's a fan fiction blog series,
Hmm.
and he was at because he's never seen the movies, and he's like, "So what's House of Dark Shadows like? Is it anything like when Carolyn and Barnabas are in this relationship?" I said, "Here's the thing." I said, "Carolyn does." Have a relationship with Barnabas in a sense in the movie. But they
Hmm.
turn Barnabas as evil to 110 degrees in the
Kills
movie.
them. He either kills or they turn into vampires.
It's 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 basically Barnabas on steroids. I mean, in a sense, he's he's
And
he's bloodletting.
yeah, and but that reminds me because I was going to bring up something when you were talking about with the revival and Barnabas coming into town. So that's another big difference is, you know, Barnabas in the revival series, you see him feeding on these townspeople. You see him, sucking the blood of the couple at the nightclub and all this sort of thing.
Yeah,
Now, Barnabas in the original series, yes, he does that, but he also drinks from cattle.
yeah,
And I think that's a very conscious decision, you
yeah.
know.
he has.
so much attention to himself, and he doesn't necessarily want to, I think, hurt these people or outright kill people.
Yeah, he does. I think that you're right. That's the big difference too. In the original series,
Mm-hmm.
we hear cattle's being drained of their blood. It's sort of the running joke that me and a friend of mine have. Hey, if you notice the cattle around you start showing up with your blood drained, suspect Barnabas.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's and I like the fact too when he tells Willie to go get him like somebody to drink. I think what he's telling him is go get me a prostitute, without actually saying it. So, which is very clever for the '60s. It's a cool way to do it.
Right.
With the
But think about that too. That means that he's not only targeting, like, cattle, things like that. He's targeting people who would not necessarily be missed, who will not necessarily throw suspicion onto him. Whereas the one with the revival, I don't think really cared. He would, just go out to feed. He didn't really think that through, which is very strange because it gives a very interesting picture of the revival Barnabas as kind of a mixed bag, where, here he is, he's very stoic, very kind of, like, well, whatever happens. But yet he doesn't have the foresight to really think through about, getting suspicion away from himself. And also, I think he revels in being a vampire more than the original series Barnabas.
Yeah, I
I
think
think he enjoys that until he discovers through the injections that there is a different way to be. There is a different pleasure that you can find in living that is so different from being the vampire, from taking blood. And it's like, you can do this. And that moment, I think, really kind of gives him hope that you can kind of see something in his brain go, I can do this. I can be happy. I can be with Victoria, and kind of realize that he hasn't truly been happy as a vampire.
I think too with Ben Cross as Barnabas too. And I think Ben Cross did a good job playing it this way too. There's supposed when he's coming out, there's supposed to be he has some control, but there's times he has a lack of it too, and it's a lot worse than what the original Barnabas was in a sense. And when he's biting the townspeople, you're right, he's like showing the fangs, he's drinking the blood like without a care in the world. But I think because again he's somebody who he feels like I have to be this way too.
Right.
Like
I
he's
think that's one of the great things about how in the revival, when they showed the boiling blood, so
yeah
that you see what goes on, excuse me, inside Barnabas. So that moment when Victoria is sleeping over at the old house,
yeah
and he goes to bite her, and he physically has to restrain himself. And it's not just that, hey, dude's got, blue balls or something. It's not that physical pain. It's the physical pain of his blood literally boiling
yeah.
inside of him. And that's got to be painful. It's not just the mental anguish of, I don't want to bite this woman I love, but that physical need to stop the pain.
Yeah, you're right. There's a pain difference between the revival and the original.
Mm-hmm.
Within the original, we're getting into psychological and not wanting to do it, not wanting to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, what did you think of Grayson Hall's Dr. Julia Hoffman and Barbara Steele's Dr. Julia Hoffman?
I think I think Julia Hoffman is a bit more complex.
Yeah,
I think Barbara Steele is certainly more one-sided. You certainly see that jealousy of
yeah,
Victoria more. And but with Julia Hoffman, you genuinely get the sense that, okay, Grayson Hall is Julia Hoffman. She genuinely cares for Barnabas. She considers him a great friend, and especially later in the series. And you feel that camaraderie, that yes, she loves him.
yeah.
It's a more all-encompassing love. It's not just a physical love. It's a friendship. It's everything. Her and Barnabas are like everything. And Barnabas, Willie, and Julia really have created this little family. And you do see that, especially kind of later in the series, just how tight they are, how far each of them have come together.
I think too with the original series because it's so much more. There's so much, again. There's a lot more episodes to sort of delve into with Hoffman. She's somebody who, Dr. Dave Woodard says it to her. She goes, "Oh, come on, Julie, don't you think I see that you like Barnabas?"
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that she's sort of falling for her patient. She has fallen for him, and she's in love with him. And it's not hard to do. Jonathan Ford was an attractive guy, and I'm a man saying it. But he's very handsome. And
Mm-hmm.
with Barbara Steele, it's very immediate. It's very right away, which I
Mm-hmm.
like. I mean, hey, they only got one season. I can't really fault them for what they did. I love how Barbara Steele is like trying to tell Barnabas like that, like she has to sort of refute Angelique a lot sooner because she's like, wait, what's that? Oh, that's the witch doctor. With Grace and Hall, when she hears about it, like Barnabas a witch, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's like wait, you believe in vampirism, but you don't believe in witches? What, lady? Like, let sit down beside your best friend Barnabas and let me tell you a story. That's a that's a wish that Barnabas would have did, but no, he was like trying to protect himself and protect her, I think, in a sense. But he sort of had to tell her that, I mean, Cassandra's slash Angelique showing up and
Mm-hmm.
just marrying Roger and like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm. I think with the original series, Barnabas, he doesn't necessarily want to tell information unless he gets to that point where he has to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is sides to him that we don't really even fully realize until something happens, and it's like, oh, he can do that. He knows about that. You know, like what was it, the voodoo ceremony or something?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, did you learn that on Martinique?
he conducts he conducts a voodoo ceremony with Trask. He conducts some voodoo magic, and it's like, oh man, yeah, that is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's like cool. Like I buy it. I mean, you were around Angelique. You were in Martinique. I'm sure you learned some crazy stuff.
I
But
mean, may have even taken him to some kind of rituals and he just never even thinking that, oh, this beautiful woman has something to do with it, you
see, I
know,
think I
taking
think
everything.
that's sort of hinted to. I'm sorry if I cut you off. I think that's hinted to because when the duel between Jeremiah and Barnabas goes to happen, and Angelique realizes, oh my God, Barnabas is going to have a duel. This man can't shoot. I've seen him shoot on the island of Martinique. He can't fire a pistol worth a damn.
Hmm.
No, I can't have him get killed.
Hmm.
I think she knows, and because she's seen him, I do think he participated in. So I think that's in a sense, in my opinion, how he sort of won Angelique over. In a sense, he participated in some sort of island games, and
Hmm.
she it impressed her what he was able to do, and caught her attention like a young man and woman would.
Hmm.
And he's seen all these tribal rituals and stuff, and he's not thinking, well, wait, is she a part of any of this? He's just looking at this beautiful woman,
Hmm.
you know?
And part of that could be, the time period that then maybe
Yeah,
that, a woman could necessarily do this or be this way or do these things.
yeah. And that's the thing too, like we're not, when he's in Martinique, it's not quite the time of the Salem witch trials, where people are getting persecuted. And Martinique's a different country, where things can be practiced and that's okay. It's just normalization for them. And so, they might not necessarily show the women doing it, maybe just the men. And so that way the women aren't exposed to sort of who they are and, what they can do. The men could have maybe that way the women had anonymity, sort of keeping their secrets.
Yeah, we have no idea what their structure on the island was. We don't know if there was maybe a head witch doctor or something that maybe would necessarily perform these rites in front of people, where the woman would do them behind closed doors.
We need that Angelique Barnabas prequel on Martinique. That's what we need. Uh, that would
Oh,
be awesome. Right, that would be awesome. But that would be cool. I'd watch it. I mean, I'd be there if that was on. Like, what station is it on? But I have a theory to run past you. It's about Barnabas's mother Naomi in the original series. So the legend of Naomi Collins is that she was given jewels by a pirate, and she was
mhm,
buried with those jewels. I have a little theory here. There's so much history and secrecy with the damn men.
mhm,
Um, and again, she wasn't born a Collins. She married a Collins.
mhm.
I think before she married Joshua or met Joshua, I don't think Naomi was given jewels by a pirate. I think she was a pirate and stole the jewels.
Hmm. That's an interesting theory. She can certainly drink like a pirate.
Yes, right, right, right. She does drink like a pirate, like a pirate captain. I said so, but
Yeah.
no, I don't know. But I think it's really interesting how many different characters Dark Shadows has, and it's like we don't know everyone's backstory completely. So I think that'd be something that really interesting to play with. Um, but what's something that you were most shocked by with Jonathan Frid's Barnabas, like something he did, and Ben Cross's Barnabas, something he did?
Um, it wasn't necessarily something he did. The big shocker moment for me, 1897, when he gets staked.
Yeah.
Like, what? I couldn't believe it, because I mean, like I said, by then I was, even though I hadn't seen the whole series, I was researching the series, and it's like, okay, this guy's the main character now. You can't kill the main character. What are you doing? And it was so shocking. And then to find out that there's this whole plot with Angelique and mirrors and this and that, and I
Yeah.
mean, that was shocking, in and of itself, but also shocking that they thought of something like that. I mean, that's pretty ingenious.
Yeah, it's really, really smart that they do that. For me, like for the original series, something that shocked me with Barnabas most is the fact that, and I'll go back to this when he did. You sort of knew the character when he first comes out of the coffin and he's talking to Josette's portrait. That
Mhm.
sort of lets you know this is not your typical vampire.
Mhm.
It sort of gave you like, wait, this isn't Dracula here.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that still shocks me to this day. With Ben Cross as Barnabas, just how confident he is.
Mhm.
I, I've sort of joked about this. I said I've joked about this with people, but I don't know if I'm joking anymore or not. But I think this is Ben Cross's audition for Bond. But he really is just so. I love his swagger as a vampire and as Barnabas himself. I mean, he. That's the thing. Both men make the role their own,
Mhm.
and I think that's something I appreciate most.
Definitely.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any questions I want to ask you about both Barnabases.
You can ask anything you like.
What did you think of uh, Joanna Goings' Victoria Winters and Alexander Mulkey Eisel's Victoria Winters?
I loved the Joanna Going Victoria Winters because she had a clue. She knew what was going on. But I mean, it's true. It's true. I think she was much more savvy, than Alexander's Victoria Winters, and she also felt more confident to me as a teacher with David in those scenes. Like she felt more kind of in control with him. and that she knew, what she was doing. And it wasn't so much, what am I going to do with this awful kid? She did kind of feel like she had kind of more control over him and more control of herself and who she was, even though she was looking for answers. And, she was this orphan with, no past, no parents. She did seem very much more in control of herself, I think.
Yeah. I think the thing with Alexander to remember is here's a character that never got to play a heel, and I wish she would have. And I
Mhm.
think that's the thing too. She's my favorite character. Like Victoria Winters, her Victoria Winters is my favorite. And I really like how she has no problem antagonizing the Phoenix.
Mhm.
She has no problem taking it on when Josette's reaching out to her. I think that's something that here's this mortal woman going against this immortal being, even without really necessarily knowing it, is still ballsy as hell of that character. Really well played. I what did you sorry, what's your favorite special effect?
Of the whole series.
Oh, just in general. Yeah.
um Gosh, I don't know, there's so many interesting ones. um I love in 1970 Parallel Time with the Stokes
Yeah.
twins. I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool, and especially for that time, to see something like that and on daytime television, and it's like, what is this? This is so cool.
I think it's really cool that because they do that twice. They do it with Don Briscoe, with
Mm-hmm.
Chris and Tom, and
Mm-hmm.
then to do it with Angelique too is pretty neat. I mean, that is really really smart. Just camera work and the way they did it, really cool. Chroma key and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love my favorite because Pat, my buddy Patrick McCray covered this. The 1841 when they're showing the bodies
Mm-hmm.
down in the cellar in 1841, and you see them, and it's just like the. I give Keith Prentice and obviously Grayson Hall a lot of credit for selling the bodies. They're not really laying there,
Mm-hmm.
but really just an overall great job by everybody right there. Just to sell bodies that aren't there is really could not have been easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed you too that Keith had Dark Shadow stuck around. Keith Prentice was your future. I mean, he really was. And it'd been interesting to see what they would have done with him in like normal time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It wouldn't.
who? Or sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't know if I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
um, I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to ask you about Dark Shadows or about the revival. I don't think I do, but Matt, please get an Angelique impression before we go.
Oh, I haven't worked on it. The thing with the Angelique voice, it's kind of like pushing. I push air up into the top of my mouth, and it's I don't know how to describe it. But she's like, why, I had that illness when I was a child. I almost died from it. I would have if my mother had known what to do. And it's just very breathy. And I mean, I haven't practiced that at all, but I have to kind of work at it a bit. Um, but it is kind of like a breathy pushing of air, kind of up into my palate, and the way that she clips her vowels and that kind of accent, and it sometimes tries to really kind of get into it. Um, and especially because I can't hear myself. Uh,
I think you have the laugh down pat, and the impression is very very good,
Thank you.
in my
Did you like
opinion.
you the other day?
Huh? Yes,
Did
I
you like?
loved it. I loved it. I played that for some friends of mine. I said that is so amazing. I don't know how to add it to my YouTube channel. I have no because I'm not. People think I'm like this tech genius, and I'm like, no, 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 no I'm not. I need A friend of mine, Don Schmidt, he said about he said about the tech book for dummies. I said, send me a copy. I need it.
Mhm.
Again, I'm not this tech genius, but I try to do my best. First of all, I just want to say thank you for giving me your time. It has been a real pleasure.
I'm so surprised you reached out.
No, I wanted to reach out and bring you on and talk to you. You do a great job.
Thank you. I'm just glad that somebody likes what I'm doing with Bobby, and thinks that that's interesting. And the thing for me was, I think it was maybe the last one that we did or the one before, when he played it to me before he uploaded it, and I'm listening to it because I hadn't known what he was going to do with it.
Yeah.
For a split second, I actually thought it was Laura Parker, and I thought, you replaced me, you know. but it was me, and he just taken my audio and worked his magic. But for a split second, I was like mad at him. I was like, you replaced me.
No, you you got it down pat. You do a really. You sound like Laura Parker. A
I wish
lot.
I could do it for you now, but I can't get it.
No, you're fine. The trust. Go check out Katherine Gonzales on Facebook. Go give her an ad. She's really, really a big Dark Shadows fan. And again, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight and talking the two Barnabases, Jonathan Frid and Ben Cross. Really, really cool. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
I do. Did you get to check out my YouTube videos that I did?
Yes, I checked out the Seaview Ghost.
Mhm.
I like that very much.
What a lot of people don't know is I've had quite a few paranormal encounters at Seaview Terrace at Collinwood, and I've recorded those, and so I've got those on my YouTube.
Years and years ago, when I was living with my parents, I'll tell one ghost story, and it's somewhat creepy. Um, Back in the woods, but we used to walk through the woods to go to the gas station convenience store, and it was a shortcut. The woods was, and sometimes we would just wander around in the woods, and we went the other way, and we wanted to cross the trusses, and the one truss, I was by myself. I was 15 at the time, and there was this coal miner coming my way, and I'm thinking, where's this guy coming from? And he said, "Hey, turn around and go the other way." He said, "You know." I said, "Why?" He said, "Just turn around and go the other way." He said, that way you can't get out that way. He said, "You got to go this way." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I did that, and I said about it to my mom. She goes, "Saw a ghost." And I said, "What do you mean I saw a ghost?" She goes, "There's no miners back in the woods." She goes, "There hasn't been for years." She goes, "That bridge he's talking about, the reason he told you to turn around, it collapsed." And I'm like, so I went and checked. Yeah, the bridge had collapsed. It had been out for years. It's crazy. Like the things you hear, the things you see. Um, but again, I want to thank you so much. I love your impression, your laugh, how you sound like Laura Parker. That is amazing. I do want to bring you back at some point.
Okay.
Um, so when is the next time you can have available?
Well, I'm off Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. So let me know. I know tomorrow's your boys' night. I felt bad. I interrupted your boys' night. I saw that last night when you told them Wednesday, and they kind of looked at you like, well, "What do you got going on tomorrow?" And then you said, "Oh, there's a girl coming on," and they went, "Oh, a girl," kind of.
No, they know. See, they know I have other guests on. So Patrick and Gordon, they're cool. Um, it's like I've had again. I can have more than one person on, which is nice. Like the more you can get in here, the better. It's like the more people you can get in, like these conversations. You know this. It's like the better off it is. Now, sometimes the one time I forget how many people I had, and like somebody froze, another person froze. Then it all worked out good the next time. It's like the miracle of technology. Sometimes it works, folks, and sometimes it just doesn't.
I'm glad I didn't freeze today, and I'm made it through, because like I say, I have the world's worst stage fright. So the fact that I'm able to sit here and have a conversation with you and remember things from the show is a miracle.
Something I do want to discuss with you when you come
Yeah.
back is I want to discuss with you the Phoenix arc.
Okay.
That would be a really good discussion. Laura Collins and the 1897 lore as well is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How they really brought her back to, in 1897 was really cool. But again, thank you so much, Katherine, for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.